climax of the visit was the submission of the country's self-assessment report by His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari to the lead panelist, Dr. Aboduli Janeli, at the State House, kickstarting the commencement of the review exercise across the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria.
This exercise will be a strong reference point in the nation's history, a source of courage and positive drive for the initiative that is aimed at consolidating the strides of this present administration. This administration has been very supportive and will continue to support the African review mechanism process in Nigeria, knowing the importance of the process, which enhances transparency and good governance, strengthens our democracy, identifies and addresses critical challenges, as well as promotes all inclusiveness. I urge us all to deliberate and come up with more vital strategies, mechanisms, and measures that would enable diligent implementation of the new national program of action for accelerated economic growth and sustainable development in Nigeria and Africa.
We applaud your ongoing efforts, your tirelessly ongoing efforts, Mr. President, to combat corruption. However, Mr. President, the issue of insecurity continues to be a major challenge. We have no doubt that Nigeria will overcome these unprecedented challenges under your able leadership.
Mr. President, sir, we cannot thank you enough for the trust reposed on us and the Governing Council of APRM to coordinate this great project. The agency will leave no stone unturned to ensure that a smooth process is attained with the kind continuous support of our dynamic President.
Although the exercise was held simultaneously at the 6 geopolitical zones, the meeting for the South-South geopolitical zone was hosted in Akwa Ibom State of Nigeria. The exercise was attended by the Secretary to the Akwa Ibom State Government, Dr. Emmanuel Ekume, who represented the State Governor, Dr. Udom Emmanuel. Also present were Dr. E. Abang, Senior Special Assistant to the National Coordinator and Chief Executive Officer of Auda-Nepad APRM Nigeria, National Governing Council Chairman, South-South Geopolitical Zone, Country Review Mission members, state representatives from South-South Zone, the public and private sector, women and youth coordinators, non-governmental organizations and civil society organizations.
That a country should look at itself, what is happening to its governance within itself, produce a country assessment report that can then be validated by external people. And the process of validation can happen in a number of ways. One of those is simply reading the report and talking to a few people and say this report is validated.
This is what you are doing today. All of you are gathered in this peer review mission meeting. That's what you're doing. To look at what has been, what you are seeing, and question the status quo. That can't it be done differently? That's what you're doing. You are assessing performance in order to do better.
The exercise began with an audio-visual telecast that captured all the projects executed in Akwa Ibom State by the present administration.
Engendered undeniable peace, progress, and prosperity in Akwa Ibom State. The solution to non-shrine self-administration have become reference points of good governance in the community of states in Nigeria.
Country Review Mission members took turns, each to ask questions on the 4 thematic areas of the APRM, involving management of natural resources, best practices in socio-economic development, and INEC deregulation of political parties.
Basically in Africa,
globally all over the world, natural resource management in resource-rich countries is still a challenge that is inhibiting inclusive development. For a natural resource endowed states, such as the South states, you must be exercised with this conundrum. My question then is, what are the key issues in managing natural resources, and how are these being addressed in the South? And the bonus question is whether there are any best practices you could share with other African countries. So my question is about natural resources management, what the key issues are, how they are being addressed, and whether there are any best practices in South.
Regarding the best practices in terms of socio-economic development, what would you say is the best practice, or are the best practices that the states pride itself on? And also, since Akwa Ibom is regarded one of the most developed states in Nigeria, what would you say are the key drivers behind this?
Participants responded adequately from all sectors, thereby validating all that was contained in the country's self-assessment report.
His Excellency has also provided a conducive environment for all of us to work. I want to say in my area, which is education, as the chairman of State Secondary Education Board, this year has been declared as the year for education in this state. Therefore, more of the budget allocation is taken towards improving the school and environment for the children. There is massive infrastructure provision in the state in terms of accommodation, in terms of laboratory and equipment, building, and also provision of resources.
I want to speak the aspect of agriculture in Coastal State. Really, before now, Coastal State was very exclusive state, but look at it now. We have factories in almost all the local government. It is local government. We have the biggest rice mill factory. We have a producing factory. We have so many factories in all the local government. So I want the federal government to look into how to assist possible, because right now the government is trying to bring up a super highway to link up with northern part of the country. Which that will help us operate a lot of products that we put through the support of the giant capacity.
Participants also shared experiences on how inclusive governance had been entrenched, especially having women, youths and persons with disabilities in every facet of administration in the zone.
When we talk about democracy and political governance in the current dispensation, we must discuss the issue of separation of power, which is key to the realization of political ideals. In my state, Rivers State, even before this protest, I can stand to tell you that Rivers State have actually practiced autonomy for the legislature, for the judiciary, and then the executive are on their own as a means of checks and balances towards getting the dividends of democracy. Having spoken about that, we have actually implemented autonomy for all the arms of government, and therefore the government runs smooth on that.
The South-South zone of Nigeria, no doubt, is very strategic as the economic base of the country. Before now, the area had been mad with youth's restiveness, which had affected oil output, oil companies' activities and businesses. All these had subsided due to the approach adopted by the various states in the zone.
The 5-point SMART agenda. The SMART agenda, S stands for strategic wealth creation, meaningful peace building, agriculture and industrialization, relevant health and educational policies, transformed environment through urban renewal. When you look at this 5-point agenda of the state government, Senator Ifeanyi Okowa, you see that the citizens, the Deltans are actually being empowered in different aspects.
End of the indoor meeting, the visiting panelists were taken on a fiscal tour of the projects in the state to corroborate all that were self-assessed in the report. Lagos State, the Center of Excellence, hosted the Southwest Geopolitical Zone Country Self-Assessment Validation Exercise. Panelist Dr. Aboduli Janeli was present, as well as the Lagos State Commissioner for Budget and Economic Planning, Sam Egube, who represented the State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Others were members from Auda-Nepad, APRM Nigeria, Southwest NGC members, and participants from all sectors of the society.
The APRM was established as a unique accountability method for African countries to review each other's governance and hold member states responsible.
It is a unique instrument. It is the test which shows our adherence to governance and our faith that we cannot continue, our continent will not develop if we don't have this faith in governance. And in this respect, I really want to salute again President Buhari, because I think he believes in this. He believes in this. He attends every imperial forum heads of state meeting. He participates. He is there.
The African peer review mechanism has been one of NEPAD's most successful programs in encouraging good governance and democratization in Africa. And I'd like to say, for those of you who are stakeholders for Lagos, Lagos State also has its own peer review mechanism, basically to keep everybody and every MDA focused.
Leadership of the Auda-Nepad APRM Nigeria, led by Princess Gloria Akobundu, was extolled for resuscitating the agency which was once moribund.
I want to appreciate the ND CEO, Princess Gloria Akobundu. She's a woman of so many parts, very, very, very able and capable. And I want to say unequivocally that she has turned Nepad around. Before her appointment as the ND CEO, Nepad has gone moribund. Nobody is reckoning with the agency. But when she took over the saddle, she turned everything around.
Of the representatives also took turns to intimate the participants on the processes that led to the compilation of the report, noting that in the course of assessing governance and socio-economic development in the country, other relevant stakeholders were carried along because of the objectives of the exercise.
They will dialogue with you, they will pose questions to you. It is not an imposition. It is simply to clarify some of the challenges and practices that you have enumerated in the report.
The self-assessment process was participatory and inclusive, involving the public sector, the civil societies, the private sector, the media, the youth and women organizations, people living with disabilities, academia, traditional and community leaders, the clergy, community-based organizations or associations.
It's something that calls for active engagement, right, along several thematic areas, which are democracy and political governance, economic governance and management, corporate governance, and socio-economic development.
During the review, participants were interrogated on governance experience sharing and the effectiveness of the public service reforms implemented by the states.
So Big Manzilla originates from the DRC, based at the APRM Secretariat, covering corporate governance. And during the introduction, it was mentioned that Lagos is literally the lungs, if we should say, the epicenter of the economic activity here in Nigeria. So just to break the ice a bit, if there is any particular stakeholder to give us an overview of the state of corporate governance in the country, we're aware that as per the country self-assessment, there's been the introduction of the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance as well. I think that was ratified last year. But in terms of its implementation and even the process to reach it, how has it been, and what do you think of any other recommendation should be?
First of all, it has to do with the way corporations are governed. And in Nigeria, the corporate governance culture and regulations are quite mature, right? You have board members, you have the principles of minority right holders. You also have the principles of independence in terms of independent directors having roles to play.
The first review report gave a state of the public sector in Nigeria and made some recommendations. So the question I would like to ask you is, what are the reforms that you know have been undertaken in the public sector, in the public service, and how effective these measures are? So we'll appreciate if we get your views on that question.
I would want to appreciate the governor of the state, represented by the Honorable Commissioner here today, on the approval of the ICT and tourism units for local governments. What we are saying is that at the local government level of the state, there will be a department, like a unit, in charge of ICT and also tourism. This, I believe, is the first in the history of Nigeria, and I believe all other states will also follow suit as Lagos has done.
I would like to mention some of the policies, reforms of the present administration in Ekiti State. For us in Ekiti State, we have there's respect, more respect for the Constitution and the rule of law. The present administration is fully committed in that area. Then the entrenchment of participatory governance and accountability.
I would also like to commend our CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, on the actions. For me, I had to say congrats to him, because our best institution, I genuinely believe, to CBN, they have taken bold steps to challenge any banks where they see infringement, and they're not afraid to step in to protect shareholder values where they see infringements by the boards and take action in a timely manner.
So in the course of the exercise, germane contributions were made by participants.
I will also advise that when the result of any survey is out, it should get to the local people, because they are the one that gave us the information.
At the end of the exercise, the panel leader, Dr. Abdullahi Jami, commended the participants for their turnout, as well as substantiating the testimonies contained thereof.
This is our last series of consultations that we've been having
with representatives of the 6 geopolitical regions, as we call it. It's been open, it's been interactive. The participation has been really at the highest to the lowest level. And they discussed what is in the self-assessment report. They gave their comments, they gave their appreciation and confirmation of those aspects of interest to them.